Welcome, folks. This is Inside the Leader's Mind, where what's in the way becomes the way. I'm your host, David Suson. And on this podcast, we look at leadership from the lens of challenges and perspectives. And sometimes the things that get in the way become the reason our leaders and the people that I talk to have become so successful. Our guest today is Dan Stachelski. He's a serial entrepreneur serving I can't even read today. Serial entrepreneur striving to make a positive impact across the global community. He's the father of 4 incredible daughters and a nervous Bernese mountain dog named Macaroni and Cheese. I love that. He's the founder and CEO of ICAN, the largest therapist-owned and operated clinic in Washington State, focused on serving children on the autism spectrum and other related conditions. He has additional businesses that are functioning in stealth mode that'll be going live within the next few months. And maybe he'll tell us a little bit about that. Maybe not. He successfully sold, acquired, developed technology to expand the reach of services, earning him numerous accolades for his accomplishments. Currently, his team provides services across 4 different states and is continually innovating to serve more patients and families. In addition to his work in the U.S., he's currently expanding his operations in Saudi Arabia and France. And he wants his legacy to be a successful enterprise that leaves a genuine mark on setting up people for success in their communities. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. It's always weird, the introduction. I don't take a lot of time to sit and reflect. So hearing it's like, oh, that happened. I did that. We did that. It's remarkable because you lose sight of it. There's always like, how can I do more? Where are we headed next? How am I going to plan for this? And so it's an incredible experience, one, to be able to be here, but also just to hear about some of the things that you've accomplished with people. You don't often find yourself thinking about that.
Well, maybe that's a good springboard just to get started before we learn more about you. What is it, just that comment of that you want to do more? What
Mhm.
what is it that drives you to, as a leader or as a human being, to want to grow, to want to develop, to want to do more? Because some people are comfortable, I got my own man show, one person, I'm a therapist, I do my own thing, and here you have built a successful, really international enterprise. So what is it about you? Where did that come from that creates that drive in you?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of nature and nurture. I did play sports, so I think that had a big impact on that whole improvement side of things because it's always, incremental gains you're trying to achieve to improve and get better at what you're doing. You're always getting feedback from the coaches. And you just kind of, it's drilled into you that you're driving for more all the time. But also on a micro scale, I get to see every day the kids that we serve here and also the kids that we don't get the opportunity to serve. And so you see the opportunity to provide better care, better services, uh, find ways to create more accessibility to services. And when you're working with a population that has these challenges, you just want to support them in being successful. So it kind of feeds itself once you start to get into it and start working with these kids and these families. Um, and then I think leadership is a choice which comes with growth. You can't be a leader without growth. And I made that choice for myself that this is something that I want to pursue. And I think I just jump in 110% to wanting to do that. Um, it's definitely a paradox where it's a sprint and a marathon a lot of times, but it's just been something that's been instilled in me. And I've always had this part of me that just wants to help people. Um, and I just really got lucky enough to work with the people that I did and the staff that I have to be able to get to where we are right now and where we're headed.
Of that. So I'm always fascinated by, as companies have grown and where they are, some have grown by, I'll call it by accident or organically,
Mhm.
meaning referrals come to them, business comes to them, and it's like, oh my gosh, I guess I have to make, bigger. I got a bit bigger. I have to do bigger. And then there's others that say, how do we get bigger? Which one is it for you?
Um, you know, I'm in that. There's a point at which every person who's doing this has to make a choice because it's like you are the nucleus, and eventually you have to step out of that nucleus and have other people who are there. And I chose because of what my legacy I wanted to be. I chose that path of I want to create a bigger enterprise. Whereas I could be that smaller scale local community service provider, but I'd still be that nucleus where it's heavily dependent upon me. And I truly believe that if you want to do something now, do it yourself. But if you want to do something big, you do it together. And I think I see that there's a community out there that can be supported with people who have the interest in making a difference that I just wanted to be a part of.
I love that. And tell us a little bit about your business and what the focus is, what you do.
Mhm. So we're a pediatric outpatient therapy clinic. So we focused on serving kids basically birth to 18. Um, we serve patients with autism, Down syndrome, typical kind of speech and language delays, sensory issues, and we have occupational therapy, we have speech therapy, we have psychological services, mental health services. We provide services in the schools, in the community. We do social groups, we have feeding groups. So we really want it to be the one-stop place that you can come and get all of the like core services you need for kids, specifically who have a diagnosis of autism or need a diagnosis of autism. And that's the core principle of how we've been directing what we do every single day.
Wow. And you've been doing this how long?
18 years.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And right now, so we briefly had talked to each other before. How big is your organization right now? If you look at full-time contract, et cetera.
Mhm. I range anywhere between 110 to 150 staff. It kind of depends. We have a little bit of a seasonal program that we offer to families, and in the summertime, kids are off, and so we don't provide services over the summer. But right now, we're about right there. But with the expansion that we're looking at offering, both from a telehealth standpoint and on a global scale, that's definitely going to be looking at doubling or tripling in the next couple of years.
And especially as you go international, you talked about France, talked
Mhm.
about Saudi Arabia.
Mhm.
Where do those stand right now?
So actually, I'm traveling to Saudi Arabia next week. I'm
Mhm.
excited to go there. It's always a great experience to travel to a different country and gain perspective, and especially see when you see such a contrast. But we're going there to meet with some of the ministries there, some individuals, and sign MOUs, memorandums of understanding, to move forward a lot of the project that we're working on. So the a portion of the stealth mode stuff is that we are focused initially on the diagnosis, and there's technology that's built into that what we're doing that is obviously proprietary, but it's going to make a large impact on that community because they don't have these services available yet, uh, to the extent of really shaping a lot of their policies in the entire country. So we're focused on that there. And we're talking everything infrastructure wise, like training, education of therapists, certification of therapists, how services are delivered, um, how the benefits are provided. So it's a really a large scale project, and it's going to take having a partner there, which is what this trip's about, to move things forward, boots on the ground, because it's obviously very difficult to be here and then on the other side of the world, working at the same time. So that partnership is going to be a critical piece of that. And in France, they actually don't have any service providers that are very similar to what we do here. And so it's going to be about offering the kind of brick and mortar facilities, also incorporating technology, but we are able to, it's a little bit slower process because we're working with stuff that's set there versus Saudi Arabia, where like we are creating what it's going to be. Um, and using the stuff that we've learned and I've learned over the process of 18 years to maybe make it so you don't have to have so many speed bumps along the way and
Yeah.
redoing a lot of stuff because we know what happens. Um, Efficiencies, et cetera, that we know work here.
How is that how is that expansion gonna affect you personally as a leader as far as, your attention, but also physically, right? Having to potentially travel, etcetera. What do you foresee there?
Mhm. Yeah, I think, from the physical standpoint, I'm a little bit of a unique situation because I've had 19 surgeries and I half of my joints are replaced. And so the physical aspect is
Bionic
actually
you're the bionic man, I love it.
yeah, basically, it'd be nice if it was an enhancement, but it's more about functionality. But it does take a toll regardless of that. And so having a specific time frame in between where you can recover and recuperate from that, also to digest all the information that you just had thrown at you. It's like drinking through a fire hose. Each time it becomes less and less, and you process it faster. But that economy, that country is growing so fast that you have to be dynamically changing. And that's why it's so important that we have a good partner there. So it's been we go every 3 months or so. And that seems to be a good interval in terms of reaching Saudi Arabia. The benefit of France is it's either on the way there or on the way back. So it's built into the trip. So it's kind of the same schedule that we have of recurrently going there. So there's a
Now,
physical flow,
go
absolutely.
ahead.
But on the like leadership side, you really have to have a solid foundation of wherever you've been working before. So you have to have a good leadership team in place. You have to have consistent operations, efficiency to where you know that you can step away from it, even for 2 weeks at a time, that you're going to be able to sustain what you're doing right now. And so you spend a lot of time training and making sure that people know what their expectations are. We have good metrics and KPIs, and that we're able to really sustain that culture that we want while you step away from the office. It's kind of that stepping out of the nucleus, that choice where you have to be able to set yourself up for success in that way too.
I love you mentioned culture, and I love talking about that. Do you, in your organization, has the culture just kind of been created, or do you have a defined culture where you've said, this is how we operate, this is how we think, this is how we treat each other, this is how we treat? How is it that culture been developed at your organization?
Yeah, it's like a living, breathing thing. Um, I had a consultant I worked with for a long time who's become a close friend, and he defines culture, and I believe in this as well. Culture is, it just is. So it's a little bit like integrity. What does it look like when you step away from it? How are people going to act? And of course, we all want to have values based leadership and values based culture, but we're also asking people to adopt the values of the organization while they're at work. And so some of it is the structure, some of it's the consistency on how you manage. Um, you can do those things, but really it does come down to the people you bring in, the trust you have between each other, and knowing that you're all doing this for the same reason, and you're all in the same boat going in the same direction. There's always variation, there's always stuff that happens, but you're all generally going the same path. And you can teeter, you can go off course a little bit, but you can always adjust back because your culture's strong. Um, and the thing that I like to say in onboarding is that, like, I can have a lot of influence on it, but really the people dictate what the culture is. So it's like you're going to find what you're looking for. If you want a culture of positive interactions and positivity, you're going to create that culture. If you want a culture that is gossipy, you're going to find it and you're going to create that culture. And so it's really important to understand how important is the people you bring on and what impact they have on your culture. So you want to make sure that you're setting the groundwork for a positive interaction, a positive experience, and they'll carry that forward.
I love that. That's really cool. And as you built this culture, you've got these employees, you got your direct staff that reports immediately to you. If
Mhm.
they were to say one word that described you on a good day, what would that word
Oh,
be and why? Yeah, I had to
um,
throw in the good day because you don't want the bad day, right? Because we all know what they say on a bad day. But if they
yeah,
describe you
yeah.
in one word on a good day, what would that be?
I think that they would say um, entrepreneurial. It's like that word encapsulates creativity, drive, vision, leadership, problem solving. Like I think that really encapsulates what they would say about me is entrepreneur.
I love that. And then what would you say about you? What's the word that you would use that would describe, let's say describes your strength or what you think is the best part about your leadership?
I think that there's so much connection and complexity in the world, but there is connection, and that I do well at taking that complexity and narrowing it down and be able to focus on like core things. You know, if it's 1 to 3, if it's 3 to 4, but never much more than that, that this is what's going to result in success. And I think that that's how I would describe myself and what I bring to the team is that to take all of that complex information, boil it down, and say, this is the direction that we need to take.
Of that. And if you look back over the last 18 years or maybe over the last 5, wherever you want to however you
Mhm.
want to look at it, was there can you think of a moment that really tested your leadership and maybe things didn't exactly go the way you wanted, but you learned a boatload because of it. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like, oh my gosh, I really screwed up, but it truly has changed who you are as a human or as a
Yeah.
leader.
Yeah. It doesn't always go according to plan. It's true.
Not
It's very
really?
true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's that the funny thing about like quotes and stuff like that is like conceptually people get it, but when you have to execute it, it's an entirely different thing. Um, and the times that I've been tested are times when something pretty drastic has happened and you have to carry an entire group of people through this. It really is on you to be responsible for and responsible for the company, but responsible to people. You're leading them. Um, I lost a code changed, reimbursement from insurance. I lost 30% of my revenue in 1 day.
Oh my
And I had to
gosh.
figure out how to turn that around in
Wow.
30 days. And so it was a significant amount of effort on my part because at the time, I had 50 staff, but I was looking at mass layoffs in that scale to be able to survive. And it took a lot of hard work and thinking and seeking outside help. Um, but I learned a ton in that process of that specific downfall. And I didn't have to lay anybody off. We were successful and were able to thrive past it. But yeah, it's one of those times where like you are at home at 2 in the morning and you're up and you're crying, wondering how you're going to cover payroll. Um, like that's grit, that's resilience, and like you have to learn through that process. COVID was another one. I mean, I lost half my patients the day that they shut down businesses, even though we were still essential. I mean, 50% of your patients gone on a Monday. And we
Oh my
launched
gosh.
telehealth in 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
So it's
That's
galvanizing a
remarkable.
team, and you're fighting the good fight, and you're fighting together. And it's a battle.
Was there in those moments or any other moment, and I know this is a little bit of a vulnerability question, but was there a moment you really thought we're done? Or was it, hey, you know what? We're on the 1 yard line. We got 99 yards to go and we're gonna do it no matter what. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that every day. No, yeah, absolutely. I think um, I think a little bit of mindset around that you kind of have to maintain. Like it drives you, dude. Like you're always. trying to catch up. And I think you have to be thinking like that. But it was very in the very beginning. It had gone through all the money possible to get the operations up and off the ground. We had staff, we were serving patients, we were billing insurance, but there's a cash gap. And I remember it was a Wednesday, and there was $1,234 left in the bank account, and payroll was due Friday. And it was like, I had to talk to the people in leadership at the time, and I said, you know, we may not make this, guys. And deer in the headlights. What are we going to do? And at that moment, you're like, whoa, wait, you should probably, you start asking me. You should call somebody else. Why me? But you have to step up and you have to say, like, you know, this is how we have to pay our liabilities and so on and so forth. You have that plan. But, the next day, there was the first check that came in that was large enough to more than cover payroll. And, from that point on, it took off. But it was down to that moment, where you're like, we've done everything we possibly can. I can't call the insurance companies anymore. Um, you can't charge families because it's insurance based. And yeah, that was a moment where are we going to make it?
That's got to be scary. But now look, right? Now it sounds like you're thriving, you're growing, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Hopefully, fingers crossed,
Yep.
continue. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself in some of these challenges you went through? Um,
Mhm.
what did you learn about yourself that maybe genuinely surprised you?
What I'm capable of doing. Um, till you get your feet in the fire, you never really know. You want to believe that you can do these things and you want to have confidence about it, kind of the fake it till you make it, but you don't know until you're tested. I mean, Mike Tyson, you can have all the strategy in the world till you get punched in the face, punched in the nose, and then what
Right.
are you going to do?
Love that. Right.
Um, I don't, I don't think it's you find it frequently enough that it's easy. Like the testing, the challenges, build resilience, build creative thinking, build teams, and I think you have to have that to be successful ultimately, um, because you know how to work through all the dynamics and all the changing. Because it changes fast. It changes all the time, and you have to be able to manage that.
Mm. As you think about teams, you think about leadership. One of the things that I always thought about was, what does my team really need from me now? I'm curious, if you were to think that, right? What do you think your team might need from you now, but they don't say it out loud?
Right. Yeah. I think. Well, first, I always ask. I think from like kind of two ways about it. Like one is you're always getting feedback if you ask, and two is you want to have a candid relationship with your team. I think people deserve respect and candor, and I think that's the way you do it. So, yeah, it can be filtered, absolutely. And that's where I think you have to have the ability to observe people. You have to be present with them, and you have to understand kind of what their own individual needs are, and be able to align those things with what the organization is trying to do. A lot of things that I see are still based out of fear, which is a natural thing to exist when you're taking on big risks, when you're taking on big things. Um, and the truth is, like, you never know if it's going to work. We plan and plan and plan, but you never know. And I think a lot of times you just have to be steadfast and confident, and kind of that steady, not too high, not too low, that kind of carries people forward through the ups and downs that happen in that change dynamic that's always going on. Um, and eventually they are able to do that on their own. They build the capacity to have that and know that that's how they're going to carry people forward.
Right. As you move forward with the business, what do you think? Because I was thinking about you talked technology, right,
Mhm.
in your intro, and you've mentioned a couple times.
Yep.
Besides the challenges in another country, just in general, over the last 18 years, if you look at where you are now, what do
Mhm.
you see as the biggest challenges leading people, the type of people that are coming on staff, on board today? What do you think, in your opinion, is the biggest challenge? Just leading
Uh,
teams, people?
yeah, I think it's attention. Um, the research is showing that a significant thing that's happening to people is their attention is impacted by social media. It's been impacted by COVID. And so we have this state of instant gratification, and there's almost an immediacy of getting bored with things. Um, and so it's kind of like you have to have things that they kind of buy you time until you go through this progression of understanding that things do take time. Um, and they're not instantaneous. You can't click a button and get those things. So it's definitely a distraction. It definitely impacts attention. And as far as like where technologies come from, I remember this. I was paying $60,000 a year for a staff to file the notes for our sessions, because everything was done on paper. And the software that I bought at the time was $30,000, and it was hosted locally. So there wasn't like the ongoing, recurrent subscription model at the time. But the moment that switch was flipped, like, it just like it advanced so fast. And that was 2013 that happened. And so, anticipating what's next, you never know because it's changing so fast. But definitely, attention is a significant part of what is difficult right now. And you almost have to create your own. Well, you do have to create your own technology to help sustain that attention from your staff. On
And do you
applications,
see
gamifying.
and do you see a difference in generational
Oh,
with the staff?
absolutely. Mhm. Absolutely. It's
Do you see this attention thing more younger generation, older generation, or is it by personality type?
Yeah, it's the younger generation. It's my staff anywhere between 18 to 26 is the group that has the most difficulty with that. Um, and it's pretty significant difference. I've got on the second generation, so there's three generations working here now. So it is much different between those three generations, and the ability to sustain attention, the ability to sustain organization, schedules, showing up for work, all of that stuff is a lot more difficult with the younger
Showing
staff.
up for work?
Absolutely, yeah. We actually this is a crazy number. Interviews in 2024, 660 people ghosted us. 660 people didn't show up for their interview. 300 people didn't show up for the first day of work. And I can't even tell you how many call-outs we have. It is crazy. It is crazy. And the
Oh my
thing that I actually
gosh.
worry about the most is we're in a very affluent time right now, but when that pendulum swings, people have burnt a lot of bridges along the way. And I fear for what the impact is going to be when it gets tighter about getting a job. Um, like that's scary to me is thinking about the staff, and you know it's going to be hyper competitive, and it's going to turn around at some point. It always does. That's scary.
What about turnover itself? That are the people that
Oh
are already on board. What's turnover done over the last however many years, trend wise?
yeah, it's significant. I mean, we in the kind of day treatment world where you serve kids for like 6 to 8 hours a day, it's already high. 67, 75% is average. It's challenging work to do day in and day out. You're dealing with significant behaviors. So it's very common that there's turnover, but gosh, I mean, it's through the roof. So we are constantly hiring staff
Higher
knowing
than
that
it
we,
was.
oh yeah, yeah. I think
Okay.
we're for a specific program that we offer, we're 100% year on year. I mean, there's just no way around it. So the adaptation has been how can you set yourself up to be as plug and play as possible? Because the things that we've tried, motivational tools, um, incentives, cultural things, it doesn't have the impact as it might have had in the past. And so we've had to adapt as an organization, understanding that that turnover is just going to happen. Don't want it. It's absolutely the last thing you want. You also have to face the fact, the brutal facts, that that's the environment that we're operating in right now.
Oh my gosh. And
Mhm.
and then that puts a lot of weight on you, I'm sure. Thinking of how
Yeah.
do I steer the ship, make the right decisions, get the right staff, plan for the future.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I mean, all of that. I also like the primary thing is like, I've got these patients, and they need care and support and they need consistent care and support. And when you don't show up, like it's such a significant impact on people. Um, and of course, the business has to be sustainable, but like just the lack of acknowledgement of the impact on a patient is it's hard to see and be a part of because a lot of stress comes from like, how do I backfill this with somebody so that they don't have a gap in their treatment program. Um, so it's an unfortunate thing. We're always looking at ways that we can improve it. Um, but again, I think there's brutal facts that we have to face right now that you have to be ready to plug and play.
That's crazy. Wow, some
Mhm.
serious challenges, and those numbers are staggering. What was it?
Mhm.
660 just didn't show up for the interview, and then 300 didn't show up the first day of work.
Yep. Yep.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
can go drill
And
down
you
from
know,
there. We've had 50 people quit on the first day. We've had 35 people quit after the first week. And, looking at even notice, like 2 weeks notice, forget about it. Like they quit by email, text message, or they just don't show up. It's it's remarkable.
it's a different generation. It's a
Yeah.
different world. That
Yeah.
the whole, the way I mean, I hate to say because of my age, but the way I was raised is you be considerate, right?
Yep.
You say please and thank you. You send a thank you note. But what I have seen, I talk a lot about this in my keynotes. Loyalty goes both ways,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of people, just my experience has been, um, some of the younger generation has seen their parents get burned in the
Mhm.
corporate world.
Yeah.
I had a gentleman 29 years at the same company. Well, you see it in the government too, but 29
Mhm.
years at the same company, and he was let go, no pension, nothing, right? Because auto industry went, and imagine his kids if you're 29 years, how old the kids are, and they're like, wow, why would I go apply for a job for life when it doesn't exist anymore? And it's
Right.
just become this. What I'm seeing is it's just this. Um, it feeds on itself.
Mhm.
And so companies become less loyal, employees become less loyal, companies be less, employees less. And then it just gets to the point where you describe. And it's sad. And
Yeah.
honestly, I don't know. I have some ideas on some solution,
Mhm.
but it's a bigger, broader issue. It's a bigger,
Yeah.
broader issue.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's the context is different for every company. But I think about that and like what I get sad about is that like there's opportunity and like I'm willing to invest as far as you're willing to invest. But it's also not like I'll give you what you want and then you do it because then it doesn't happen. It's like this mutual respect and trust that you're both invested. Um, and leadership has to demonstrate that investment too. You have to be consistently showing that you're invested in the work that they're doing. But there's so much things that people just expect to happen and they just clock in and clock out. And there's that quiet quitting stuff that happens. Um, and it's unfortunate. There's so much influence from social media on that you don't get the opportunity to sit down with people and work through it, like to
Yeah.
talk about it. to engage in the conversation, to have a discussion or a debate about it. Like you just don't get that opportunity.
Well, for another podcast, we'll dig deeper in that perhaps. So, hey, I want to close with, and I have so much more I want to talk to you about, but I just
Mhm,
because of time, I want to close with one last question.
mhm,
And this comes from when I was a kid. People would, and I've shared this on some of my other podcasts where it comes from. When I was a kid, aunts and uncles, they would say, "How are you doing? Good. How's school? Fine."
mhm.
And that was it. And then in the
Yeah,
back of my mind, I'm like, why don't you ask me this question? Or I asked my daughter, you know, my all three of my kids all ask questions, and they're like, Dad, you're really being nosy. And then when I don't ask questions, they say, you don't know anything about me. It's hilarious. So here's the question. What's the question you wish people would ask you?
yeah,
They just don't know to ask you.
yeah. It's funny because when I first talked to my colleague about this, I guess another way that people could describe me is against the grain. I was like, it's not the question, it's the answer. But I do have a question because I was like, I just want people to listen. It's a skill, and it's like I can't think about a question that like is just about me. I was like, it's about how we can improve, how I can offer something that's going to help people improve, or have the opportunity to improve. It's like what's just listen. But the question that I would want to be asked is actually so when people get into conversations, they usually ask why one time. Actually, the question I want people to ask is the second why, because the first why is the tip of the iceberg.
Mhm.
It's out of the pocket, just saying something. It's the second why. Um, that's when I think you start to engage with people and listen, and that's what I would want people to ask me.
Love that. I call it peeling the onion.
Yeah. Mhm.
You know, I'll just share this real quick and then we're going to wrap up. I sat on the airplane next to a guy and I said, and it was not a why question, but we're sitting on the airplane and we're just chatting. He didn't have earbuds in. He wasn't reading. We're just, and they're bringing us to drink. And so we talk, and I said, well, what do you do? And he says, oh, I'm in shipping.
Mhm.
And most people go, oh, I've been on a ship before. And so what I say was, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean you're in shipping? And he says, well, I do this and this and this. And I said, oh my gosh, I've never met anyone that does that. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. And we get at the
Mhm.
end of the conversation, as for another time, I'll tell you the story. But at the end of the conversation, he says, I've never really told anyone about my job like I told you. And he's like, it was so much fun to talk to you. And I didn't do any of the talking. It was
Right.
just, but no one has ever taken the time to peel the onion and have an interest and a curiosity
Mhm.
in him. They're too involved in themselves.
Yeah.
What's about, and instead of, look, what do you do and how do you do it? And I've never seen that. Explain it to me. I'm curious. I want to learn. And so anyway, thank you for your answer, Dan. And thank you for being a guest today. You've
Yeah.
been wonderful and I'm excited to hear more. And thank you for sharing some of the kind of the obstacles and challenges. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Of talking to you today, and hopefully we can talk more in the future.
If someone wants to get in touch with you, learn more about your business, what
Mhm.
you all do, your services, etc., what's
Yep.
the best way for them to learn more?
Yep. The website is i-can.center. And you can always reach out to me via email, dan at i-can.center. And I would love to talk to anybody that's interested in talking about really anything. Love to know more, learn more all the time.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you again for being with me. And folks, thank you for listening. Please, if you've enjoyed this, please share it with someone else. And if you know some great leaders or someone who wants to become a great leader, pass it on to them or let me know who they are. I'd love to interview them. My name is David Susan, and this is Inside the Leader's Mind. We'll see you next time. Ciao.